Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Believe in Bengal podcast. Yours truly, Solomon Wilcots, and our Cincinnati Bengals insider, Charlie Goldsmith. Charlie, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing excellent. Look, Shemar Stewart is now under contract. We can exhale maybe just a little bit. We'll talk about Trey Hendrickson in just a moment. But first of all, tell me, what do you think got this deal done for Shemar Stewart? And what has it been like for him in his early days on the practice field?
Well, there was a little compromise on both sides, but because of how boilerplate a lot of these or all of these rookie contracts are, there wasn't even too much that he got in return. And ultimately, he agreed to the clause that we've been talking about for the last 4 months. I think a part of this, too, is he recognized, I've got to play, I've got to show up, I've got a lot of work to do. His first practice was full of reminders of that as he really struggled. But then his second practice was a big step in the right direction, definitely very impressive. So he recognized he's got to go through that process, and he started getting to work.
Yeah, the rust factor was beginning, I think, to become a concern after missing the entire OTAs, at least the on-the-field work. And as a football player, it's hard to assimilate what it's like to play in a game or what it's like to go through a real practice. Whereas if you're a baseball player or a basketball player, you could take ground balls off to the side, and that's going to be the same as in a game. You can practice turning a double play off to the side, and it's the same as it's going to be in a game. There's nothing that you could do as a football player practicing off to the side that's going to be the same as in a game. The energy, the tempo, the intensity, it goes up even in practice, let alone a game. And I'm sure he had to feel like he was a step behind. What has it been like for, say, Al Golden now, who has to now get him ready to play and integrate him into what they're doing defensively?
Al Golden, certainly defensive line coach Jerry Montgomery especially, is running this process. And you're seeing, like, for example, on Monday on the practice fields, they had during individual drills, Shemar Stewart going first for every drill because kind of how it works. I mean, you all know how it works. The coach says, all right, here's what we're going to do. And they wanted Shemar up while that information was freshest in his head. Right after the instruction, Shemar, go and do it. And so that extra attention to detail, he's repeated some reps, which is good because he's never done any of this before. He's repeated some reps a lot of time before practice with Jerry Montgomery, kind of catching up on specific techniques. Again, definitely work to do, and they're being very hands-on in this process, catching him up to speed.
Help us to understand what's new on the Trey Hendrickson front. We're hearing that the two sides are very far apart in terms of the money that's guaranteed over the life of the expected contract. We're expecting it to be about a 3-year deal. So far, the reports are that the Bengals are willing to give guaranteed money on the first year. Trey wants more security beyond 2025 because the contract could be voided after the first year. If you only have guaranteed money, you could cut him and then don't owe him anything. So he's looking for more security. What are you hearing on that front?
Trey's working out on his own, and it's kind of the same stalemate that we were in the offseason. And you hope that deadlines spur action, but the deadline of training camp hasn't shaped or impacted this one way or another. You know, ultimately the Bengals are going to either change their mind and offer Trey some multi-year guarantees, which frankly I doubt, or Hendrickson's going to recognize I'm under contract, I've got to play. I think that's the more likely scenario. So whenever he gets to that point, the Bengals are hoping that he gets to that point. Now, they could have been more proactive, of course, but that's just where things stand.
Why have not market economics prevailed here? Trey Hendrickson, for example, has more sacks than any other edge rusher over the last 2 years in the NFL. More than Myles Garrett, more than TJ Watt, more than Danielle Hunter, more than Max Crosby. He's tied for second in total pressures over the last 2 years, more than some of those guys that I've just mentioned. So his production, and then market economics, production yields value, right? Why has that not prevailed here, considering he's the same age as TJ Watt? And TJ Watt got $90 million in guaranteed money over the life of his 3-year contract extension.
You can't pay everybody. Obviously, you know that. You can't pay everybody. This is also, like, for example, in 2020, the Bengals gave Joe Mixon a contract extension. And one of the lines in that conversation was, we had no one else to pay, and we wanted a good player to reward. Well, now the Bengals are in a spot where, obviously, with Burrow, Chase, and Higgins making as much as they're making, they've had difficult decisions. They'll continue to have difficult decisions. They'll have difficult decisions in the future. At this time next year, we could be talking about a Bengals team that wants to get a contract extension done for Chase Brown, that's trying to push for a new deal with the Cam Taylor-Britt, let's say if he is a big year, that's going to hope to be working on a contract extension with Dax Hill, because in their mind, he's going to have a strong season. There are all these other players who they're not going to probably be able to keep all of either. And that future calculus is part of it. The past calculus, with the fact that you're paying Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, impacts this as well. And ultimately, some guys just get squeezed out in terms of what you're willing to guarantee them for the future.
Even though they're one of the top producing players in the league and one of your best locker room guys and one of your best on-field players, to squeeze that player out for the potential of other players, I think is a critical sort of method that I think is worth looking at and worth evaluating as the team moves forward. I want to ask you about some of the other edge rushers, because every time I'm reading and looking and watching, I feel like this is going to be a very special year for Joseph Osai. What are you seeing from him in the early days of training camp?
He had a terrific play on Monday where it was, I believe, a swing past the Yoshivasha out of the backfield, and he showed that range. He blew it up. I think just physically, like, he's one of those guys that I've noticed a more physical difference with. Like, I've used the word rugged. Like, he looks more rugged. We know Joseph Osai is kind of like the speed rusher. Run. Again, I see more of that rugged old man strength, and he's a very young guy, but you know exactly what I mean. And that's something that's a very good tool to have for a defensive end. Now, he's competing for a starting spot opposite Hendrickson. Him, Stewart, Murphy are all going to get their chances. Right now, there's probably not a huge gap between those three, and it could probably end up in any specific order based on probably who's hot, who's kind of game by game almost. But Osai, I'd say, would be the leader in the clubhouse right now to open the season as a starter.
Wow, I think that's phenomenal. How is Myles Murphy doing? I know he had a little setback with some injuries. I think he's back on the field. Where is he at right now?
He had a sack as well on Monday. It was a big day for the D-line, and we can talk about Bengals offensive line concerns another time. He said what his line was, the bullets are slowing down. And this is the first time where I'm actually feeling myself just winding up and go, as opposed to thinking, set this up to set that up to counter this, to counter that, then how are they blocking me? I think Jerry Montgomery's helped him develop a faster process to go through kind of in the line of fire at the line of scrimmage. And that's helped. Again, work to do, more to prove. He maybe has as much to prove as anyone on this defense. But there's stuff to work with because he wasn't as bad as people might say last year. He was fine last season. And the hope and the plan is some coaching adjustments can help him take the next step.
So lastly, before we let you go, Charlie, I want to ask you about the secondary. We've got a collection of names of guys who I think can be really good players, whether it's DJ Turner, Dax Hill, Cam Taylor-Britt, Josh Newton, Jordan Battle, Tyson Anderson, as well as Geno Stone. How are these guys ready to really come together to create what I believe could be a really special and unique secondary? I think individually, these guys are really good ball players. Who they are collectively remains to be seen. Our hope is that they're going to come together and gel into becoming one of the top performing secondaries in the National Football League. That takes time to happen, but we need it to happen right now, don't we?
So I'm watching the secondary, like individual drills. I'm right there, right on the sideline next to where they're working out. 11 on 11, I'm focused. All right, who's lining up where, what defensive backs are doing what. Like, that's where my spotlight's been, because that can make or break this season. A big story with that is how much these corners have been rotating, both in different positions, different alignments, different combinations. I think Cam Taylor-Britt's in a very good spot to start, but as they kind of continue that, they've kind of been rotating him in and out. He got kind of an easy day the other day, so they could look at some more guys. It's been a very strong camp for Josh Newton, who had a beautiful pass break up on an out to Jamar Chase, or a comeback to Jamar Chase, which is great. It hasn't been perfect for Josh, but his inside-outside versatility and the opportunity are certainly there. Dax Hill, I think, is another very safe bet to start once he's healthy. They're kind of easing him in, coming back from a torn ACL, but then picking up his player as a team option, fifth-year option for next season is a clear indication that they view him as a starter. The one who struggled some more is DJ Turner, still getting the ball at the contested catch point and being more physical with the ball in the air. He's said it. The coaches have said it. It's something he's working on. But the straight line speed is obvious, and kind of the way he can shadow a receiver before the ball is thrown. They're hoping that translates with the next step. And then even DJ Ivey is getting some more opportunity, some real first-team reps. Last we saw DJ Ivey, week 18, he was their third down guy on George Pickens, the Steelers' #1 receiver at the time. So if you ended last season in a spot where on the most important downs you're guarding the team's best player, you've got my attention. So DJ Ivey has my attention as well.
DJ Ivey is a guy that can flat out play. I watched him in college. I love his tenacity, love his energy. And now to see him getting this opportunity, he strikes me as someone who's going to be able to take advantage of it. What about the safeties? How is Jordan Battle doing? What are you seeing from Geno Stone? And Tyson Anderson is a very, to me, one of the guys who his time has come after putting work on special teams over the last couple of years. Has he earned a right to get more snaps?
Jordan Battle, let's start with, I'd say the biggest development I've seen from him is almost vocally leadership, kind of trying to establish his role in a very young secondary, which is something they need. He was a captain at Alabama. I think he's kind of about the right stuff. Now, he'll always be a player that kind of flies under the radar. He's not a playmaker. And he's kind of a guy you can't really evaluate until the lights come on and you can really see what he can do as a tackler. But sure, it's been nice. Geno Stone has made more plays in camp already than he made all of last camp. Still just wanting to see more from him, challenging the ball in the air, taking more ownership and more aggression of his role as a center fielder. It's been nice, but he wasn't a starting level player last year, and he has to continue to stack days to get back there. Tyson Anderson has been the best playmaker with the second team. Will he get more opportunities? I mean, it's him or DJ Ivey kind of on the field when you look at third down sub packages. So while Tyson has had some nice awareness moments, tracking plays down the field, he blew up a play over the middle on Monday, but DJ Ivey's cover versatility to me gives him a bit of an edge, but Tyson sure, has some free safety roaming potential as well. So he's competing for it, but he's got to continue to build on that in preseason games.
Well, that's the individual breakdown. I think collectively, their ability to communicate and, more importantly, limit the big plays down the field. Don't let the ball go over your head. That's really going to be the key. And that's something Al Golden is preaching, something that this defense needs more in 2025, because we've given up more big plays over the last 2 seasons than I remember this defense giving up in a long time. Charlie, we're going to let you go. We appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for the breakdown. We'll see you next week on the next episode, okay?
Thank you.
All right, you're the best.